Hi everyone, my name is Meridian and welcome to my YouTube channel. On this channel, I'm posting DIY, old-fashioned, and cosplay videos with little blips about life and mental health. For today's video, I'll be thrift flipping a sweater and a pillowcase that I never use into some leg warmers. The main goal for this DIY for me was to use supplies I already have to curb my craft supply hoarding problem. I decided to cut up this sweater because it sat in my closet for a long time. I never wore it because I hate v-necks and can never figure out how to style them to suit me. But I love the knit pattern and colors, and that's what caught my eye when I thrifted this piece in the first place. When cutting apart the sweater, I cut off the arms to use as one pair of leg warmers, then cut the front and back apart to use as the second pair. I also cut the v-neck out of the front of the sweater to use as a strap. After the pieces are cut apart, I trimmed the front and back parts a bit so it would be more straight where I intended to sew later. And on the collar strap, I removed the excess yarns that were still knitted into it. During this process, I did accidentally cut into the collar strap itself a couple times, so I used some twine and sewed it back closed. With all my pieces ready, I took them to the serger to overlock the raw edges and prevent further fraying. Then I looped the excess serger thread into the overlock stitch to close it up nicely. Now to start decorating it. For the first leg warmer, I'm using the back side of the sweater. I wanted to add some big pink bows for this one, modeling a leg warmer I saw on Devil Inspired. I had some 2-inch wide pink satin ribbon from a previous project that was already cut off the original spool, so I used that to make the bows. It actually ended up being the perfect amount to make 2 double bows with tails, so I didn't have any left over. Using a lighter, I sealed the raw edges of the ribbon. I'm not sure if anyone wants me to go into depth about how I folded the bows. There's lots of tutorials on YouTube already that go over different ways to make bows and what they would look like. So I'm not going to go into depth about folding and sewing the bows specifically in this video, but let me know if you guys want me to do that in a future video. Since I was trying to use the supplies I already have, and ribbon is something I have a lot of, I used it in this DIY, but it would save a lot of time if I bought new bows that are already made, or you could also use hair bows that maybe you don't use often anymore. So folding a bow from scratch might not always be necessary for a DIY like this. To make the bows extra cute, I had these 3D pearly heart stickers from Daiso and I glued them onto some of the bow tails. For the leg warmer, I decided to use the bottom hem of the sweater as the top of the leg warmer so it looks like it has a finished rib trim at the top. Then I used pins to estimate where I would like to put the bows on. With some 3/8 off-white satin ribbon, I used this to create the center of the bow and also used it to tie the bow to the fabric. I thread the ribbon from the front to the back of the knitted fabric and tie it shut. I then pinned the collar strap to the top of the leg warmer to kind of mimic that ballet crisscross tie-up look. Then I prepare an elastic slightly shorter than the circumference of my knee area. Then I take all of this to the sewing machine and sew the ballet straps in. To prevent the bows from falling out, I sewed together the ribbon tails on the back side. If you want to make them removable, you can leave them as is, or you can even use an alligator clip or safety pin so it's easier to change out the bows in the future. For the elastic, I use a zigzag stitch when sewing it to the top of the leg warmer. After that, I fold the outsides together and sew it down to create the back seam. For the finishing touch, I turn the leg warmer inside out and roll the bottom to create a rounded hem. I then tack the rolled hem in several areas to prevent it from unrolling later on. Cutting off the excess sewing thread that finishes the first leg warmer, and now I can start on the second. This time I'm using the front side of the sweater. For the v-neck, I wanted to put in a frilly cutout inspired by these shirts I saw on Pinterest. I'm using some pink fabric I previously used as tiny curtains before I moved. Making ruffles from scratch also takes a while, so if you don't want to do that, you can always buy lace ruffles, or if you have leftover lace, you can use that instead. I didn't have any, so I'm just using some fabric. After cutting the triangle out, I cut the fabric into 3-inch wide strips. I cut off the previous hem and triangle bits to make all the strips a rectangle shape. Then I used my serger to sew all the strips together and then overlock the entire perimeter. I forgot to turn on my camera when I serged the strips together, so I only have overlocking the perimeter for these clips. After the serger, I take the long strip of fabric and bring it to the sewing machine to make ruffles. I like to push the fabric into the foot while sewing. I think this method makes the most dramatic ruffles. After finishing the ruffling, I roll the edge over twice to sew a hem. I realized after doing this, it would have been much faster to sew the hem first and then do the ruffling later. After finishing the ruffle strip, I take the triangle fabric and serge the edge. Then I roll the bottom hem in the sewing machine. As a side note, you don't have to serge the triangle strip until later. I just forgot and serged it before I started hemming it. When the hemming is done, I take the ruffled fabric and line it up with the triangle piece. I was able to get 4 tiers to fit onto the fabric, and I cut the strips to size. Back at the sewing machine, I take the first tier and sew it straight across the top of the triangle fabric. I am making the ruffle face towards the top during this step. I repeat sewing the ruffle strip straight across the triangle for 4 tiers. When all the tiers are sewn on, then I flip the ruffle to face downwards towards the bottom, and then top stitch the ruffle after that. Then I take this over to the serger and overlock the raw ruffle edges to the base triangle fabric. This is the part where I mentioned you didn't have to overlock the triangle earlier because I ended up doing it again here anyways. After tucking the excess serger thread into the overlock stitch to close it up, I sew the ruffle cutout into the V-neck section of the sweater fabric. You can see I left a little bit of excess fabric length on the sweater fabric. This is for me to roll up and tack down to match the rolled hem on the first leg warmer from earlier. I really love how the ruffles look sewn into the leg warmer. For the next part, I wanted to create a faux corset detail on the top of the ruffles. My inspiration was a leg warmer from Belle Chic. Instead of threading the ribbon straight through like a shoelace, I decided to cut up the ribbon into pieces. I didn't want the ribbon to get pulled around while wearing it or while the leg warmer goes through the wash. I've had some lace-up details on other clothes and hate having to fix it all the time. I burn the edges of the ribbon to seal them. While sealing multiple pieces, I like using a candle instead of the lighter directly so I don't have to hold the lighter the whole time. After that, I insert the ribbon into the sweater fabric and pin it into place where I want to sew it down. I do this for the first half of the corset details and sew straight down both sides. I try to keep the sewn line between the pink and white knitted columns so it's not so noticeable. Then I pin the second half of the ribbons to cross the current ones. I sew them into place, same as the first set. Then I use a zigzag stitch to sew the elastic band for the top of the leg warmer. Fold the outside together, sew down the side seam, and then roll the bottom hem and tack in place. That finishes off the leg warmer same as the first one. I plan on uploading this video on New Year's Day, so if it's up, Happy New Year everyone! How was 2024 for you? I feel like I've been having so many road bumps in the recent years and I've only been recovering it from the past few months. The last touch on this leg warmer is to hand sew the bow into place and glue some of the 3D heart stickers onto the ruffle tiers. Back on the topic of New Year's, do you make New Year's resolutions? My New Year's resolution for 2025 is to post consistently to social media and to promote my shop as well. I get worried a lot about making New Year's resolutions because I feel like recently I've always been feeling them. The mixed feelings fester a lot during the holidays, and I've developed a bad relationship with the holiday months at the end of the year. It's something I've been working through, and I think I did a decent job in 2024. That's the first pair of leg warmers all complete. Here's a few close-up of the details. I'm so in love with the ruffle cutout and the corset detail. Also, I know these are just flat lace, but I will have some clips of what they look like when I wear them at the end of the video. For the second pair of leg warmers, I'm using the sleeves of the sweater to make them. For the top, I am using a pair of pink shoelaces I never used in shoes and looping them into where the sleeve cuff meets the sleeve fabric. Since the knit ribbing isn't very stretchy, it's actually kind of hard to put on my leg, but it just barely fits, so I can still use them. For the decoration on this set, I wanted to do a zipper detail inspired by some leg warmers I saw from Cutie Kill, and this triple belt toggle like the same double inspired reference from earlier. I got these belt toggles a while back, thinking to add them to a pleated skirt, but I never got around to that project, so I'll be using it for this DIY. To attach the belts, I have these snap-on studs, but need to make some holes first. After marking where I want to puncture the belts, I used an awl to poke the holes. Then I used pins to mark where the left side of the holes would be. I tried to make them line up with the vertical lines of the fabric knitting. It's a bit hard to see, but I put the bottom part of the stud under the fabric, then poke it through the hole I made in the belt toggle, and then snap the stud on top to secure it. I repeat for the rest of the belt toggles. This was a really quick add-on, and I love how it turned out. I'll definitely be buying more of these for future projects. For the zippers on the other leg warmer, I start by pinning them into place. The second one, I pin the first side but fold it over so it's not in the way of the first zipper. Taking it to the sewing machine, I sew the first zipper down, taking out the pins as I sew around it. After the first one is sewn in, then I unfold the second zipper and sew that one into place as well. Since this leg warmer is made from the sleeve, I had to take my time and sew carefully so I didn't accidentally sew the sleeve shut. In the future, if I want to do zipper details, I'll definitely do it with the front and back pieces of the sweater because this was really difficult to sew. Despite the difficulty, I love the way it turned out. Here are some close-ups of the details for the completed second set. I'll have video clips where I try them on at the end of the video. For the third pair of leg warmers, I'm using fabric from a throw pillowcase that I don't use. The fuzzy fabric reminds me of those rave-style leg warmers, but I have a reference here from Belle Chic as the inspiration. By the way, I will leave a link in the description to my Pinterest board for all the leg warmer inspiration I used in this video. I really love the texture of this pillowcase. I like that the fuzzy fabric isn't just like a straight fuzzy or shaggy, and that it's like has this wavy texture to the surface. After seam ripping the zipper on the front and back apart, I removed the excess threads from the edges of the fabric so I have a clean slate to work with. Then I take the fabric to my serger and overlock the edges. For this leg warmer, I wanted to do an all-over bows look, like this one from Devil Inspired. But the top bow, I want to do a giant one, and the rest of them will be small bows. I have some leftover fabric strips, so I'll use this one to make the bow. It is super wrinkly, so I iron it first before working on folding and sewing it. For folding it, I am using my first leg warmer from earlier in this video as a reference so I can make the bow roughly the same size. When there's dead time for audio, is it okay for me to share side notes about things on my mind? I just hope I'm not distracting from the overall video. Since I'm planning to promote my shop in 2025, I've been thinking a lot about what types of products to post. In the past, I've dabbled in a few different old-fashioned styles and felt the need to rebrand my shop. Now I just feel like I want to make whatever I feel like, and I'm having a hard time coming to terms with accepting that I might not have a cohesive fashion brand if I want to experiment with lots of different styles. I felt really boxed in previously though, so I want to pursue art in 2025 with a lot more freedom. After the bow is sewn together, I use a small black ribbon to tie it into the fabric, same method as the first leg warmer. Since this fabric doesn't have holes like the sweater fabric did, I used a needle to thread the ribbon to the other side. When I previously ran my shop back in 2017 to 2019, my style was exclusively in the menhair genre, and since then I've wanted to branch out into other styles. For a long time, I've struggled with the feeling that my art isn't worth anything if I wasn't promoting mental health awareness in the menhair space, so I got stuck in a huge rut. In 2025, I want to accept that it's okay for me to pursue art that interests me, and that my shop can be a second priority. To decorate the bow, I'm using some white mini 3D bows I have from my nail supplies. For the tiny bows, I followed this tutorial I found on YouTube on how to make a double bow just using my fingers. I'll link the tutorial I used in the description box below. I had to practice a couple times to get it, but I was able to make several bows for this DIY. If you have pre-made bows lying around or you want to buy some pre-made bows, you can certainly do that if you don't want to make them from scratch. So, I've shared a bit about my own art journey and goals for 2025. In your own art journey, have you experienced struggling with what you want to pursue next? Or do you have any goals for 2025? Let me know in the comments. After completing all the bows, I pin them to where I want and hand sew them all into place. Is it also okay for me to ask for feedback during audio dead time? I definitely cut a lot of footage to condense down the video, but sometimes I'm not sure if I cut too much or cut too little. Feedback on my editing would be awesome. Thank you. For the top of the leg warmer, I have some black elastic to make for the band. I bring the elastic and the fabric to the sewing machine, and first I sew shut the ribbon holding the large bow at the top. Then, to sew the elastic for the top band, I realize it doesn't actually stretch the entire length of the fabric. So I ruche the top of the fabric to make the total length shorter. After ruching, I use a zigzag stitch to sew the elastic band to the top. Then I fold the outside together and sew it to create the back seam. I don't do anything to the bottom since the fur covers the overlock stitch anyways. For the second leg warmer in this set, I want to do another corset, but this time with grommets. I use the bow to gauge how far apart I want to set the grommets. Then mark where I plan to put them. Since the fuzzy fabric is quite thick, the grommet press doesn't work to punch a hole out of the fabric. So I use one of the grommets to mark out circles and then cut them out by hand. When the holes are completely cut out, I use the grommet press to insert the grommets. The grommet press is my newest tool, and while it's really fun to use, it's definitely a grip strength and arm workout trying to use it. But I absolutely love how the grommets look and can't wait to work on more projects with it. For the top of the corset detail, I'll be using a black belt toggle for the top. I only have one of these in the black, so that uses up my supply of belt toggles that I was hoarding. To clip them into the fabric, I'm using the same snap-on studs. In this clip, it's a lot easier to see how I can add on the snap stud. I put the backing through the fabric hole and the belt hole, and then I snap on the stud to the top side. It was also harder to film this since I was sitting with the tripod and phone between my legs, but hopefully this was a better view compared to the belt toggles that I did for the pink one. For the large bow, I'm adding this to the bottom of the corset detail and using the center ribbon to tie to the fabric, same as the other bow. For the detail on this bow, I'm using a heart key charm and dangling it from the center. While I'm working on this last leg warmer, do you have a favorite one so far from this video? Also, I am curious to know what other YouTubers you're interested in. I am looking for more recommendations on alternative fashion creators to subscribe to. Let me know in the comments who your favorites are. To finish off this leg warmer, I will be sewing the black elastic for the top band and sewing the back seam in the same method as earlier. For the corset portion, I will lace through some black satin ribbon and sew it shut from the inside. With the pink leg warmer, I was afraid to stretch out the knit in the wash if the corset ribbon pulled through and got caught. For this one, I think it was okay being fully laced up since I don't think the ribbon would ruin the fabric with the grommets protecting it, and the grommets also make it easier to fix the ribbon if it gets out of place. And that's it! Here are the close-up details of the pillowcase leg warmers. While it's definitely an effort to use the grommet press, I am so in love with the way the corset portion turned out. Though, in a future DIY, I'll use a fabric that doesn't cover up the grommets. Now for my favorite part. How do the leg warmers look while I'm wearing them? I think my favorite leg warmer is the ruffle one from the first set and the corset one from the last one for sure. If you liked this DIY video, please send me a like and post a comment to let me know what you think. If you'd like to subscribe, I plan on posting the DIYs I made as Christmas gifts up next. Hope to see you on my next video. Thanks!